everyone. I am super excited to be here. The topic that I picked today is smart skills. And I'm going to talk about AI. We've talked about AI a lot, and maybe we've talked about the bad side of AI. I'm going to try and give you the positive side and how we're seeing some success in that space. As Paul said, I've been with Dow for a really long time now, 28 years. Clearly, I kind of like it here. And I've been through a bunch of different roles, everywhere from starting out managing some emissions and waste goals for the company to being a production engineer, running a hazardous waste incinerator. I went through a bunch of our different business units. I ran an electronic materials plant out in Massachusetts for a number of years. And then I settled into this role here where I'm the Director of Continuous Improvement, which I like to tell everyone is actually the coolest job in Dow, because I just get to do all that fun stuff that I became an engineer to do. I just get to solve problems every day, and I get to work with people. Maybe that's not why you go into engineering, but I enjoy that part of it. I want to tell you a little bit about a case study, maybe give you some practical takeaways. And by the way, I am so blown away by the slides that my fabulous graphic designer made for me. I last week, just-in-time delivery, I said, Amy, I'm doing this presentation next week and my slides look terrible. Can you make them look better? Hopefully you enjoy them as much as I did, because I think she did a cool job. But so why are we talking about smart skills? What do I even mean by that? And we've talked about this a lot today, right? The pace of change is getting faster and faster. And so we have to keep trying to keep up with this. And the traditional training methods that we have done, right? Put everybody into a conference room and teach them things, they don't work anymore. And maybe somebody brought this example up at another conference I attended, and I just love it. I think about it a lot. I'm sure there's at least a few of us in the room who are old enough to remember the days when we got that brand new office telephone, the one that had the special button that you push to get your voicemail, and you could conference people together, and it had all these features we'd never had before. What did we do? They didn't just put the phone in our office and be like, all right, I'm sure you guys will figure it out, right? We had a brochure, and there was a training. There was probably drop-in help sessions where they taught us how to use this new piece of technology that we'd just been given. What happens now? I mean, I feel like every week I'm getting some new email that's like, oh, we just released this new feature, or this new agent is available, or this new tool is available. And that's how our workers feel too, and it's overwhelming. I mean, to even try and keep up with that. And so the way that we've tried to upskill and train people just doesn't keep up with that either. And I feel like where we're at right now is really an inflection point in how we learn, how we perform work, how we engage with each other. Coincidentally, there was a very relevant article that came out on LinkedIn yesterday. Fran forwarded it to me, and I had even read it myself at lunch. Maybe some of you guys saw it as well. It had some really interesting statistics. It said that nearly half of employees agree that using AI is going to make them more efficient and better able to grow in their careers. Great, that sounds great. The flip side of that is about 45% of them say that they don't feel supported to actually learn those skills and be prepared to use them. So that's kind of disappointing. The even crazier side of that is when they go and they ask leadership, 70% believe, hey, we're already realizing gains with AI. And 65% say our employees feel very supported in using AI and the new tools that we're rolling out. So clearly we've got a little bit of a disconnect. So what I want to tell you a little bit about today is, it's a case study. It's the story of our CI Kickstart program. I'm the Director of Continuous Improvement. CI Kickstart is a program that I'm super passionate about. It's how we skill our improvement engineers, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're expanding it beyond that original skill, or the original target audience, to make decisions, solve problems, all those good things. So a little bit on the CI Kickstart origin story. back in the good old days of 2017, we launched CI Kickstart, and it was an in-person, love an in-person class. We would go to a site, we would organize this class, we would have almost like a conference, we would have people come together for some workshops, we would have specialized elective tracks that they could go and they could say, well, I want to learn more about project management, or I want to learn more about lean. And it had a very strong foundational curriculum aligned with OpEx, continuous improvement, lean, Six Sigma principles. And it was great, it was fun. But it's a labor-intensive and, in these day and age, expensive model to keep up. So we realistically did a couple workshops a year. But in a company that back in those days was around 60,000 people, that doesn't hit very many folks. So CI Kickstart had to evolve at some point, and that first evolution really came in 2020. I bet we can all guess why. So our first real evolution of CI Kickstart was figuring out how do we do this very hands-on, traditional, the way you learn lean is to do lean and to go out in the field. How do you convert that to something virtual so that we don't just shut down when the world shut down? And so that was a big initiative for us, and we did convert it to virtual. Luckily, technology was going like gangbusters back then, right? I mean, can you even remember the days when we didn't have, you could just hit a button and open up a Teams meeting with people, and you could connect all across the world with voice calls and video calls and all that. It wasn't that many years ago, but now it just seems commonplace. But this is the technology that enabled us to start making this virtual. Breakout rooms, and at that point for us it was WebEx, and then it became Teams, where you could send people off to do an exercise, and you could have polls pop up and all these different interactions. We were able to make this hands-on workshop something that could still work and still be interactive and engaging in a virtual way. But what was cool about this was we reached those little sites. And as somebody that was a small site leader, man, I appreciate that, because when you work at a small site, if anybody here has ever worked at a small site or with a small site, it's hard, right? You don't have much travel budget, you don't have a lot of, people resources, so you can't just give folks up to go travel to corporate headquarters for, weeks at a time. So we were able to reach these small remote sites. Of course, didn't cost us anything but the time and the technology to do it. We didn't have the travel. And then, there we go. And it really increased the number and the diversity of people that we were able to reach. And this was really cool. Some of those early days ones, I remember we did a cohort with our coatings business. Our coatings business is a bunch of little tiny sites, like 30 to 50 people in a lot of these sites, spread all over the world. And they wanted to do a business-specific one, so that was awesome. And we got all these small sites, and we connected them. And when they went to breakout rooms, I would hit that magic shuffle button for the breakout rooms each time so they could see different people. And they actually got to talk to each other and talk about the common problems that they had. It's crazy that we have a business within our company with multiple sites, and those sites don't talk to each other. Something like this enabled them to start having those conversations and building those networks. And so the young engineers that maybe hired into a 30, 40 person plant, and they're not really sure what the bigger company looks like, got to interact with other folks. And so that was a really great moment in time to start this. But that wasn't the end for CI Kickstart, right? It has to keep going. If we just stop at one place and say, well, this is the program, we're just going to keep offering it like this, people get bored. Even though we have new people coming in, they're still going to get bored with the program. So our next evolution was when Gen AI really started becoming available to all of us. As these tools emerged and as we were able to use them within our firewalls, within our company boundaries, we could start bringing that into CI Kickstart. And so little things like drafting a charter, right? I can just sit there and type the charter, or I can have a template and I can use generative AI to say, this is my project and here's my template, and can you help me form this template? Oh, it just makes it a little bit easier. Just kind of lowers that barrier to entry just a little bit. writing problem statements. This is one I've really enjoyed seeing how these breakout sessions go. I'll give them a problem statement, and I'll say, ask this problem in different ways. Because you ask it one way, you're going to get one set of answers. How might I reduce the amount of rework we have going on in our facility? Okay, so I'm going to get a series of answers. That's a pretty metrics-driven question. I'm probably going to talk about how many pounds of rework I have, how many times I work it back into the process. But what if I ask that question differently? What if I ask a question about how could I make the amount of rework more visible to the people who are operating the plant? Maybe they don't even see that it piles up in the warehouse. They don't even see it. Now I'm thinking a little bit more creatively. And the cool thing is, Gen AI can help that. And so the message that we wanted to give to the young engineers that were here is when you use Gen AI to do stuff like this, it's not cheating, right? This isn't college anymore. It's not cheating. This is helping. This is giving you an opportunity to learn. It's almost treating Gen AI a little bit like a coach here, right? As you see how Copilot writes these questions in different ways, your brain starts to process that. And so the next time, maybe you don't have to use Copilot, because you're like, oh, I remember how to do this. I remember how to write questions in different ways. Great for brainstorming. I don't know if you guys have used Copilot and Whiteboard. Holy moly, that integration is really cool. Now I can do a whole brainstorming session, and then I can circle all of those little sticky notes that we've made, and I can say affinitize. And Copilot will just affinitize them. Do you remember how long affinitizing sticky notes on a whiteboard used to take? And the really cool thing is, if you don't like the way Copilot affinitized it, you just hit the button, you say try again. And it affinitizes them a little bit differently. Maybe you like those categories better. And so again, it's just like lowering this barrier to entry. And so in CI Kickstart, we started showing people how to do these things. Because it's one thing to get the note that comes out from corporate IT that says, you now have access to Copilot for Whiteboard. Okay, whatever, file that away for later. Maybe I'd just delete it because I'm like, what? I'll figure it out when I have to. But you don't, right? And so we wanted to just give people this safe space to try this and to show them, how can I actually use this? Creating communication plans is another one. And so what we really wanted to talk about here was AI-augmented problem-solving skills. We're not taking away or trying to eliminate critical thinking. We still want the human in the room. What we're trying to do is just lower that barrier to entry just a little bit so that you can do these simple upfront tasks a little bit faster and save your valuable engineering time to do the really cool problem solving and implementation that you trained for and that you want to do. And so we kept going from there. And so literally every time that I launch a new CI Kickstart initiative with folks, everyone is just evolving a little bit. I can't leave it alone. I have to keep tweaking it because I want it to be as modern as possible, and I want people to feel like it's evolving with the technology. So the latest thing that we brought into it was the agentic AI. And so when we got access to Copilot Analyst, I got the email from IT, and I almost did the typical thing where I'm like, I'll figure this out later. Because I'm maybe not your typical engineer. Things like statistical data analysis makes my head hurt. I would much rather be out on a plant floor looking how to optimize a workflow, looking at big spreadsheets full of numbers, not my thing. So I almost was like, ugh, no, that didn't sound fun. But I looked at it, and when I looked at what Copilot Analyst could do, the first thing I thought of is all of that statistical analysis stuff that I hate, Copilot Analyst will do that for me. And so I immediately put that into CI Kickstart, because I know there's other people like me out there, and I found a lot of them in the times that we've done this one about 4 or 5 times now. And so we give them a real-life scenario. A couple of different ones we have. We have like comparing the performance of 2 packaging lines. We had one where this was for a supply chain and procurement group. We looked at the accessorial charges, the differences between a couple of carriers. We used real-ish data that had been sanitized a little bit and would also show some of the trends I wanted them to see. But we encouraged them to use Copilot Analyst. And the cool thing is it'll generate all those graphs for you. And those hours that you had to spend in Excel, or that excuse that you had, I don't have a jump license or a Minitab license, or I haven't used it in like a year and I don't remember how to use that. Or even just, I don't remember all that statistical stuff. It makes my head hurt. I don't want to look at it. Guess what? Copilot Analyst can help you with that. And it doesn't take away the need for critical thinking. It doesn't tell you what to do. It just gives you data that you can actually look at. So instead of looking at a big list of numbers and saying, I don't know, I think I'll just go with my gut, it can give you some data so that maybe your gut has a little bit more, thought and smarts behind it before you make those decisions. And so this one has been really exciting to watch the breakout groups. As I send people to breakouts, I tell them about this, because I still go through the statistical analysis. I still make sure they remember what their mean, median, and mode are and all those things. And they roll their eyes at me over the cameras. But then I send them to the breakout rooms and say, all that stuff I just told you, guess what? I'm going to make it easy for you. And so this has been really game-changing as well. And so what this has enabled is that CI Kickstart, which we used to only be able to do a couple times a year, I can't keep up with the requests anymore. I have groups launching their own CI Kickstart and taking off and using this. And so again, we're using AI to help us expand it faster and faster. So we can rapidly tailor the scenarios. This has been my favorite, because this used to take forever for me to go and, I have to make a new scenario. I don't know anything about this. I have to come up with something good. Our purchasing function came to me middle of last year, and they said, we hear that you do this continuous improvement training. We want continuous improvement and project management as well. Can you help us with that? And I'm like, sure. I don't know anything about purchasing, but guess what? Copilot does. And so I was able to feed in, hey, Copilot, here is my operations example for statistical data analysis, or for problem solving, or for communication plan. Can you suggest a different example that would appeal to my purchasing audience? In a matter of, this was like a Friday afternoon I did this, so in a matter of like 4 or 5 hours, I converted the entire 10-hour CI Kickstart workshop from operations to procurement. It was incredible. And the feedback, because I gave them a survey at the end, the feedback was really positive, that they were like, we were really impressed that we had examples that actually applied to us. And so we've converted it for purchasing, we've converted it for integrated supply chain and all of its various flavors, scheduling and planning and logistics. We've even done some pieces of this for human resources. I taught root cause investigation for human resources professionals last year. Who would have thought? And then the other thing that I'm just so passionate about, I love languages. I love meeting people, in a way that resonates with them personally. And so working in a global company, it always frustrated me how much of our content was in English and only in English, and how limited the translation capabilities were. Generative AI has really broken down that barrier. And so I love the fact that I can adapt this for local language in different regions. So basically all of my continuous improvement material is translated into 8 to 9 different languages. And the really cool thing is the people who have been through one of these CI Kickstart workshops become the ambassadors. So Copilot or one of the translation programs does the machine translation. I send it off to one of my favorite ambassadors. They do some proofreading for me. They fix the little problems. Some of the languages are pretty close. Some of our Asian languages still struggle a little bit. They help me get that just right. And we all feel like we're part of that community. The thing that we're doing right now that I'm super, super excited about is we are now figuring out how to take CI Kickstart and make it for different groups. So when we developed this back in 2017, our target audience was improvement engineers. And that's who we wanted to hit, the people who were going to lead projects, the people who are going to use these skills. But in the era that we're in today, we need everybody doing continuous improvement. But they don't all need the same content, right? Scrap learning is really big. We don't want to just teach people to teach people. So now we're using, the development team is using Copilot to help us figure out for the different audiences, hey, we want a CI Kickstart version for our management system coordinators, training coordinators, EH&S specialists, kind of that family of folks that work in our plants. That's what we're working on right now. We hope to have it ready to pilot in about a month now. And it's really taken this program that we were super excited and proud about back in 2017, but now this foundational program has become a multi-audience platform. And I'm not joking when I say I literally can't keep up with the requests that are coming into our functional mailbox. I had 2 new groups contact me just yesterday saying, hey, we heard about this and we're ready to get started. So maybe just a little bit about, there we go, what we learned. So a few different things. So the first one is, I think it's really important to meet learners where they are, to understand your audience. So whether that's customizing your content to what they want to hear, putting it in a local language that they can understand, but also thinking about what they're ready for. You know, we've talked about already today that not everybody is ready to jump in with both feet into AI stuff. But if we can find that little piece and start small and say, here's how it'll help you with the stuff you're already doing, and take this task that you really hate doing anyway, we can help you do it a little bit faster, a little bit easier, maybe take that off of your plate. We also found how important it is to use those real scenarios. So I do love that Copilot can generate scenarios for me, but I also love that I have a group of ambassadors that I can run those past and say, does this make sense? And we keep adapting those and trying to make them as applicable as possible. That's one thing I find. So I inherited a lot of training when I came into this role, and we keep using the same tired examples. And so even if it's little things like the date that is in the example, if the date says 2015 or 2016 or something like that on it, guess what? Our brand new, just joined the company learners who maybe were just barely being born then, they don't, all of a sudden that example sounds old and dated. Even if the same plant is still running the same way as it did 50 years ago, they don't want to hear about an example from 50 years ago. They want it to feel fresh. So little things like updating a date, at the risk of potentially saying a hot button issue, things like how we name people in examples, what pronouns we use for people, things like that are also important to the generation that's coming in. And so being able to keep those examples fresh is really important for folks. And then this idea of upskilling, right? I loved Jennifer's comment about whether education is a destination or a journey. And it's not a destination. It has to be a journey. And so upskilling is not just teaching people a set of tools. I'm sure many of you and your companies did the whole Six Sigma thing back in the day, right? We did the whole Six Sigma thing. We sent everybody to Six Sigma academies, and they all became black belts, and then we had green belt project leaders and all this. But it was very much a destination. Here's a big set of tools, and hopefully you figure out how to use the tools. Upskilling has to be about helping people see how they use these tools differently. So those hands-on examples of, hey, here's how you can use AI to generate problem statements or reframe the way that you're looking at something or modify your communication strategy. Helping them see how it fits into their workflow has been really important to make sure that they continue using it. And then I do really believe, and this may be controversial too, because I know there's a lot of folks who are, like, AI isn't, we're not ready for it, but I do feel like it supports equity in learning. Because if I go into this workshop and I have, maybe a bit of a sidetrack here, improvement engineers in Dow, it used to be you didn't just hire in as an improvement engineer. You came in through production engineering, process engineering, you did a couple of those. You were probably at least 5 years in the company before you became an improvement engineer, maybe more. Not anymore. Improvement engineers are now hired fresh out of school. So literally you graduated months ago, and now we're expecting you to lead big projects, sometimes massive capital projects. You're a manufacturing rep or a project lead for, which is insane. And so if we think about all the different skill levels and experience levels that people have, bringing in these things where maybe I don't have all the experience with this particular technology or this particular type of unit operation, it can support a little bit of equity there by just leveling the playing field just a little bit, lowering that barrier to enter into the process of learning. And so I wanted to give you a few practical takeaways. If you're inspired by this and you want to try and do this with some of your learning programs as well, I would challenge you, just start with something, right? Pick 2 or 3 high-value tasks where you think AI could remove friction. Is it getting people to visualize their data better? Is it getting people to actually write a charter because nobody wants to write a charter and AI could actually help them do that, super quick and easy? Just pick 1 or 2. And then embed the AI inside the training. To me, this one's key, right? If you create a whole series of workshops on how to use Copilot to do whatever, people are like, I'm already tapped out. I don't have time to go to another workshop. But if I was already planning to go to root cause investigation training or CI Kickstart training, and now I see these things inside the existing training, now I can just engage with them so much easier. And modeling that safe usage, so we talked a little bit in one of the earlier presentations about the different generations in the workforce, right? Different generations in the workforce have different perceptions of using AI. When is it acceptable to use AI? When should I use AI? That same LinkedIn article that I read yesterday, I felt very proud because it said that Gen X is embracing it the most, and I am a proud Gen X. I embody literally every stereotype of Gen X. But as a parent of Gen Z people, I see the difference, right? My kids they claim to hate AI because they don't think about it. I mean, it's just so innate. They're like, no, I won't use ChatGPT to answer that question. I'll Google it. When I'm like, honey, it's still AI. So helping people understand safe and effective use. Kids have had it beat into their heads in school, don't use AI, don't use AI, don't use AI. Now at work, I'm like, please, use AI. It's okay. It's not cheating. You still have to use your brain, but it's not cheating for you to use it for those simple tasks. And then another thing that I think is important, and we're still trying to figure this one out, and we're going to have some Q&A after this where hopefully somebody will give me a brilliant idea about how to measure the effectiveness here, right? Because there's different ways. You can measure it by, number of people that engage with a particular tool. You can measure it by number of people that come to training. You can measure it by number of new projects started or value delivered. There's lots of different things there. So figuring ways to measure impact, I think, is also really important. And so I'll just leave you with, the thought here that AI is not about replacing skills, it's about elevating them. Some of my favorite people at the AI conferences I attend like to say AI is not going to replace people, but people who use AI effectively are going to replace those people. And so it's all about, finding that right way, finding the most effective ways to do that. And my takeaway for you, as we heard in the very first opening there from, was it David? Coming to a conference like this and sitting here and learning stuff and even taking lots of notes is only the first step. What are you actually going to do with this? So my challenge to you is think about one training program you have. And what task inside of that could be easier? Just start with that. And maybe that will take you on your journey. And there is a QR code for my LinkedIn. Please connect with me if you are so inspired and want to talk about this stuff. If you couldn't figure it out, I kind of like it. So happy to have those conversations. All right. That's it for me. And then I think we have some Menti questions coming up, too. All right, so this builds probably a word cloud, I think. What's the most valuable type of knowledge you wish you could capture more effectively? So we've talked about knowledge capture already a little bit, and of course that's a huge piece of what Voovio does. Thanks to them for allowing us to all come together and talk about this stuff here. But curious, what is it that keeps you up at night and you wish you could capture more effectively? That's a big one, troubleshooting tips, because it's so, it's so situation dependent. And this is the stuff that I fear losing the most, right? When that 30-year operator retires, what does he have in his head? I love this answer too, critical thinking. Man, how do you capture critical thinking? That's such a tough one. The real world knowledge and experience. Hazard identification, I like that one too. There's some different cool solutions providers out there who are using some interesting AI type solutions, AI visioning, things like that, to be able to look for hazards, which I think is so incredible. I like this one too, curiosity. How do you capture that feeling of curiosity, that desire to learn more about the process and what's happening in it? Past lessons learned is a good one, because I'm sure many of you have the same lessons learned, onboarding videos. Ours is called A Look Back in Time. And it's got all of the dramatic music you would expect. And I remember watching it as a young engineer, and by the way, I think it's the same video that I watched 28 years ago. But yeah, how do you capture that stuff in an engaging way and make sure that those lessons, not just the really huge ones, but the little lessons along the way are learned? I just helped with a root cause investigation around some contamination that happened on a new construction project, and it had to do with a transportation coating that was applied to some piping. And the people that were on the project didn't know anything about this transportation coating. When I asked the design engineer, he's like, "Oh yeah, that's industry standard." I'm like, "Maybe you could have told the people about it?" He's like, "Well, I don't. Everybody knows about that, right?" And he's like, "This comes up like every few years, something happens." And I'm like, "Really? You wouldn't have thought maybe put that in a document someplace?" So yeah, I agree. That's a big one. Maybe a hot button for me right now. All right, let's go to the next question, because I think there were two kind of questions related to this one. So we've just talked about all the things we wish we could capture. What is the biggest challenge you face in capturing that knowledge before people leave or retire? When I wrote the question, I wrote retire, but it's more than just that too, right? Because not everybody is looking for the 28-year career that I have enjoyed, right? So people are like, "Oh, this company looks fun. I'm going to go over here after 2, 3, 4, 5 years." So let's see what we have here. Maybe we can get some audience input from this one. So a lack of time, difficulty in just documenting it, a limitation of our tools, or the people that we're asking are just not into it. So looks like lack of time is jumping up as kind of a big one here. I'd love to hear from a few folks. What do you think, how do we address that, or what do you see as opportunities in that space? How can we make it a priority to go do that sort of thing?
So one thing that we face at our facility, Patrick with Quarry Pillwell, by the way, I put on this, and this is kind of a passion of mine, something I'm trying to overcome myself. We lean so heavily on our experience, and operator burnout is a huge thing. Experience burnout is one of the major problems that we're facing. It's a lot of the reason why we have the turnover that we do, that I think that's industry-wide right now. Everybody's looking for that perfect place where you get the perfect balance. And so because of that, it's very hard when you're giving all your time. You're having to come in on overtime to train that individual. You're having to sit there, and that experience gap has gone from that 10, 15, 30-year operator down to the 2.5, 3-year average operator now, at least at our facility. It's one thing we're facing. And so that's the major problem, that we're just stretching these guys way too thin.
Yeah, I think that's real. I mean, we're already asking you to work your full shift plus overtime plus probably train a new guy or two alongside of you. Oh, and by the way, can you also document, the knowledge that you have in your head? It's time, but it's also even just a little bit of fear of being replaced. I was talking to some very senior members of our technology center on this same root cause investigation that I was helping with, and I was kind of asking them questions around, because this one guy was ranting and raving about, the young engineers don't have critical thinking skills, and they don't know to look for this, and they don't know to look for that, and I'm like, well, is it written down in your documentation anywhere? And he's like, no. He's like, old guys don't like to write stuff down. I'm like, the first step is admitting you have a problem. So yeah, it's real. What else do people think about this one? What else? I mean, we have a lot of people saying lack of time or competing priorities, or just difficulty in documenting it. What other thoughts do people have, or ideas? Have you had success in this space, or maybe you've tried and something didn't work that you can share and we can all learn from?
So it's interesting that we have this question. I'm also a Gen Xer, and about 20 years ago worked with a company called Knowledge Harvesting to do the same thing, but for a different generation. It was the baby boomers. And the same challenges I think today exist, albeit we're probably more advanced technologically, have capabilities, but a lot of the similar trends we hear is we're trying to capture knowledge, but the harder thing to capture is the skill. So you take that advanced SME that's about to retire, and they can tell you exactly how they increase productivity by turning this valve a little bit, but what does really a little bit mean? So we used a company, I don't know if it's proprietary or not, so I apologize if it is, but again, it was 20 years ago, so maybe the statute of limitations is up. So, but you had to video it. You had to do the interview, you had to video, and you built that or included it into the qualification and refresher for operations folks, which was the key individuals at that time we were focused on, and that was recyclable, and you could refer back to it as that person had already moved on, so you weren't just dependent on someone's ability to read a long narrative. You also had the video to support it. So anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, and I think we've come a long way in terms of our being comfortable with different, modalities of learning, right? Because proud Gen Xer, give me an article to read any day. I can read it fast. I can absorb the information. Send me a video to watch, and I'm irritated with you. But I'm getting past that, right? Because my kids are the opposite. My kids are like, read this thing. I'm not going to do that. I just want to watch a YouTube video. And so I think that we're coming a long way in the technology to be able to capture those videos, but also people's comfort with, one, making them, and two, watching them. So maybe that'll help us bridge some of these gaps. Let's see, should we go to the next question? What else? I already forgot what they are. Oh, okay. So what cultural or organizational barriers impact our ability to do this? Do we feel like it's about silos that are preventing us from capturing that knowledge, or do we feel like there was a little bit around recognition that we talked about earlier, right? Is people don't feel like they are empowered or rewarded or compensated for doing that? Or do people feel like, if I share this information, there's a job security aspect? Or is this a leadership problem, right? Are the people like, I'm ready to share, but leadership doesn't make that pathway available to me, maybe? Yeah, I can relate to these folks putting in the things around siloed organizations. In Dow, we are what we like to call a matrix organization, which just means lots of very well fortified silos sometimes. I always feel bad for solutions providers who will reach out to me because they see my title and they're like, oh, you must do this, this, and this. And I'm like, actually, I don't. I don't do anything with turnarounds or predictive maintenance or whatever they might be reaching out. And they're like, well, can you tell me who in your company does? Maybe. Maybe I can't because maybe I don't know. Another big one, this fear of sharing experience reduces job security. So I'd love to hear from a few folks. Either whichever one you feel passionate about, right? Somebody want to, how do we break down those silos, or how do we break down that fear that sharing is going to jeopardize my job? Come on, you were a chatty group earlier. I know you're all ready for lunch, but surely somebody has some thoughts here. Oh, on leadership? Yeah, exactly. And that's interesting because this was probably a pick one answer. And so, yeah, maybe you pick the one that it's not the true root cause. I love a root cause investigation. It's not the true root cause, right? Maybe people don't feel empowered, but why don't they feel empowered? Well, is it because leadership isn't empowering them? So I kind of love that answer. What can we do? How do we help our leadership see that this is critical, that this is important, and that they need to make time for this and find ways to incentivize this, whatever incentivize might mean?
Thanks. Everything you talked about, I kind of experienced it with our company, and something that really came out of these programs, because we did green belts and black belts and Six Sigma and everything, but when we put this program together where we sort of shared our ideas and thoughts, one of the operators, he might have been a laborer actually, he did a presentation about some valve that was always leaking. And during the presentation, he said, for 40 years I've been watching that valve leak. Okay, I've been telling everybody and no one's done anything. And today I've had a chance to talk about it. And so what I thought was interesting and what I really learned was that, hey, these people didn't have a voice. They didn't have a voice to sort of get that message out that, hey, I've got a good idea. And just because I'm not in an office or in operations or whatever, but I walk past this valve all the time, it leaks and I know how to fix it. Somebody listened to me. So I think having that voice was really, made a change for us. That having that voice and the other thing I'll add is about AI, and we use AI a lot, and what AI helped us with translations. So some of our Brazilian operations joined, and all their presentations are translated on AI. So that really opened up, that operation to.
Yeah, I love that thought about giving people a voice, and I am super passionate about translations. I love the fact that you can be in a Teams meeting and you can have real-time translations. I can chat with folks at all levels of the organization where before I might have had to go through that translator or that intermediate person, and so maybe that helps lower that barrier a little bit too. I know we're just about at time, so I want to make sure that you guys stay on your schedule. Do you have? Okay. So this question is about, let's try and look ahead into our crystal balls here about how we can use AI to continuously update and evolve our knowledge bases. So a few thoughts that are up here around automatically updating work instructions, or maybe using AI co-pilots, things like that, to summarize conversations. We probably all are playing with chat bots, intelligent search. Sometimes they're not so intelligent, maybe. Predictive insights, or maybe you're still in the, I don't know how we're going to use this yet. This is interesting, right? Because this one's a little bit scary. Automatically updating work instructions. I go to a number of AI-focused conferences just because I really like to hear what people are doing and how are we getting past some of these things. It's a big change for our industry, you know, because we've all encountered that we used a chat bot, whether it was at work or not at work or whatever, and it gave the wrong answer. The wrong answer can mean, you know, really bad things in our industries. So how do we reconcile that? But I do love that we have some answers here, right? We're finding ways, summarizing SME conversations. I don't know if you guys have the Teams Copilot integration where you can turn on transcription and then it'll transcribe your meeting and then summarize the action items at the end. Wow, that's game changing. So you know, things like that can be really important. So I'm glad to see others are, you know, feeling that's a place that we can do things. This one is really interesting to me. I put this one in of my own thinking here. Flagging outdated content. Another thing that someone said to me at a conference that has stuck with me, and I think about it all the time, is maybe one of the skill sets that we need going forward in this, you know, AI reality that we're in is librarians. Right? Remember librarians when you go to the place with the books and they know everything. You can walk up to the librarian, you can be like, I'm looking for something that kind of does this, and they're like, oh, here it is. Right? How amazing. That's what we need, right? And if you work for a dinosaur of a company like I do, and you have 125 years, 127 years of documentation that we haven't probably ever deleted, it's really scary what Copilot finds sometimes. So this idea of, can we somehow use the technology to help us weed out that junk and help us see when we are pulling in the wrong stuff? I don't know how to do that, but I think it'd be really cool if we could. So. Oh, and then we did have a question about metrics. So would love to hear if anybody has any brilliant ideas. As we're on this journey, how do we measure success? Because that's what it's all about, right? What have you done for me lately? What have you done for me today? How are you delivering value to the company? What are things that we might measure? Some thoughts around maybe, is it a reduction in time to onboard or time to come to competency? Can we measure the, back to our old Six Sigma days, a reduction in defects? Do we start with a measurement like just measuring engagement? And this is probably a pick one answer, which is hard because you're probably like, well, it's kind of all of them. And it's also maybe an evolution of them. Because I like to think about, first, I might just need to measure engagement, right? In our safety culture, we talk about going from compliance to commitment, right? Compliance. You will fill out a safe work permit. You will carry a procedure when you do this task. You will fill out a job safety analysis card for every task. I do it because I have to. It's a condition of my employment. But guess what? After you do that over and over again, 28 years in Dow, when I go in the kitchen and I'm going to chop vegetables, I think about line of fire hazards. Because I have gone from commitment, I'm going to look for these things, or compliance, I'm going to look for these things because I have to commitment, which is I understand why this is important now. And so people engaging, that's the first step, right? Once they engage with this, hopefully, now we start to see, oh gosh, it actually helped me out. And I actually have a reduction in defects and things like that. So I know we're short on time. Anything else? Any thoughts from the audience around metrics or measuring or this kind of progression of what is the right metric when? I've lost you all. Oh, we got it.
Actually, if you wouldn't mind, I want to go back to something you said almost at the beginning. You mentioned the new telephone on your desk, and when you come with manuals and videos and things, and as we see generational groups coming through, we see less and less of that instruction, more and more just native technology users just integrating. how do we square that natural curiosity with this is a process that's highly structured, highly skilled, that you can't just go and wing it?
That is so hard, right? I don't want you out there just tweaking buttons on, the DCS system. That could be bad for our process, but you're right. How do you balance that? We want you to be curious, we want you to ask questions, but we need to do it in a safe way. And so I think technology actually can help us in that space, right? Digital twins, that hot button issue, right? All those kinds of things maybe help us practice these things, try these things in a safe way. I mean, that's one of the things why I wanted to bring these practical examples into our CI Kickstart. I want you to try using Copilot Analyst on a sanitized hypothetical set of data before you go out and try it on the one that you're about to make a multi-million-dollar decision about whether or not the plant's going to run differently. So I think maybe we can even use technology in those spaces as well if we can give people a safe space to try.